You got friendzoned
I got friendzoned hard.
for 3 years.
Yeah, for 3 years.
So
Friendzoned by her and her dad. Her dad was like, "You'll never date my daughter."
Shut up.
He was cool as a disciple. He was not cool as a son.
He's like, no.
He said, "I know your testimony. I know your pastor." He was no.
What's up, fam? This is JJ. We have a mini Manso Friday with my boy Will. Will's actually a good friend as well, so it was really fun to sit awkwardly 3 inches beside him on a couch where Kate usually sits. We usually don't have our guests in person, so it was a treat. And hey, I just want to say, before we jump into the episode, which I think you guys will love, this is maybe one of the most important episodes we've ever done for the men, specifically how we end and what we talk about for Will and the most important thing he ever invested in as a man. I would just say, please, I always ask you guys to share, and I mean it out of a friendly way. If there is an episode to share with a friend and say, I've been putting off asking you to do friendship well, to be intimate and vulnerable with you as a friend, to really go deeper and experience that iron sharpens iron dynamic of true friendship, true biblical friendship. If you've been delaying that like I did for years, just use this episode as maybe the starting point. You guys can talk about your dating life. You guys can talk about friendship. You guys can talk about where you are as far as your history of friendship and where you've done it well and maybe where you have not done it well. You'll see what I'm talking about with Will and his story and his male friendships, his guy community. So if you are a guy who has struggled to build that really, really awesome, not just friendship where you guys joke around, you hang around each other, but you guys maybe don't get as vulnerable as you want, well, let this be the spark for some of those conversations. I sincerely mean that and challenge you. Yes, even you women who listen to these episodes as well, that challenge is extended to you guys. Love you guys. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did, and have a great weekend, fam. What's up, fam? I'm here with your boy, Will.
What's going on, everybody?
What's good, Will?
Heart of dating, baby. That's what's going on, bro.
Hey, I did my homework. I know everything about you.
Tell me, bro. Remind me.
Okay, so fun fact, I didn't even know this. I was reading your bio. I was like, I didn't even know this about Will. So I guess we weren't that good of friends till now. But you were born and raised in Seoul.
Born and raised in Seoul, South Korea until I was 16.
Yeah.
15 until I was 15.
Okay. Online it says 16.
16 is when I got saved.
Okay. 15 you got in trouble.
15 I did get it. Okay, bro. Yeah. What's up, dog?
And you moved to Illinois.
I moved to Illinois, Champaign-Urbana.
Yeah. Go, what's their mascot again? U of I?
Illini.
Fighting Illini.
Fighting Illini, U of I, yeah.
So you didn't go to...
I didn't go to college there. My brother was at U of I.
Okay.
So I was in the middle, January of my sophomore year, I moved in with my brother. Abruptly.
While he was at college.
He was in university.
When you were a teenager, you moved?
I was a sophomore, second semester of sophomore year. I ran away from Korea.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Did you get shipped off or did you decide to go?
Long story short, big troublemaker, sold drugs. Friends got caught with the drugs that I provided, and word got to me that I was getting set up, and I ran away.
No way.
Yeah.
Dude, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So you got out of town literally before you got arrested.
Yeah, bought a ticket. It's a long story, but bought a ticket. Mom and I left Korea. Dad stayed because he had to continue working.
Yeah.
And it was either Alaska or U of I, baby. My parents just wanted me to get away from anything that remotely looked like a city or might have trouble. So I remember having a talk do you want to go to Alaska or do you want to move in with your brother?
What a decision to make at 16. You want to go to the middle of Illinois?
I know, bro.
Or Alaska. They're not too different from one another.
Well, Champaign-Urbana is pretty middle of nowhere.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Just all you smell is manure, cow manure.
Dude, I've been.
Cornfields. Yeah.
I went one time when the Cubs were in the World Series. In college, we visited, and I wore Dodger gear to the bar to piss everybody off. And I made the front page of their newspaper.
Did you? At Champaign-Urbana?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right before I got jumped. No.
Because, U of I is Champaign-Urbana is like a university town. So,
Dude, I'm like mind blown. And then you became a youth pastor 2 years after that.
when I was 18. Yeah. So I got, I didn't grow up in church, but my dad was a nominal Christian. Mom was a Buddhist. So we would visit church like growing up. So,
Wow.
So if I had to identify, I identified as a Christian, but a lot of doubts, a lot of questions. So I didn't start, when I moved to the States, I really started going to church because my mom missed kind of like that Korean immigrant community and culture. So she started to go to a Korean immigrant church. So I started going to church when I moved to Champaign-Urbana. And then I got saved. Like I had one of those stories.
I mean, no, you can talk about it.
I mean, it was February 8, 2006. I remember the date because it was an NBA dunk contest.
It was a big day.
Big day, baby. And then my mom forced me to go to church. The elder called my mom multiple times. And at the time, my mom wasn't even still a Christian. She didn't even identify as a Christian, but we just started going for Korean food, Korean culture, Korean language, community. So I'm forced to go to church that night. And I had one of those encounters, dude. I was in the back row, came late. The pastor was preaching, and it was a guest speaker. And that guest speaker is now my father-in-law. I know, can't make this up, bro. So,
crazy.
I know, it's wild, dude. But he guest spoke, preached the gospel, and at the end of the service, I was crying, without exaggeration, probably for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, constantly, like, because I was just under the conviction of my sins. I felt his love, and then I became a youth pastor 2 years after that, bro.
And now you got 3 kids.
3 kids.
With that pastor's daughter.
Yeah. She never wanted to marry a pastor. So I actually pursued her for 2.5 years. And she rejected me for 2.5 years, like straight. And her biggest hindrance was I never want to marry a pastor.
Even though youth pastors aren't pastors, right? No,
Exactly.
I'm kidding.
She was like, I've been about it. I've been around it. I've been a PK my whole life. So Andrea will always say she was attracted to me, but I've never. So I started pursuing her when I was 18. Actually, the same month I became a youth pastor was like the month I told her that I liked her, like straight up. But we didn't start dating.
She was like, if only you didn't just.
I know, right? But we didn't start dating until we were 21.
Okay, so you got friendzoned.
I got friendzoned hard.
For 3 years.
Yeah, for 3 years.
So
friendzoned by her and her dad. Her dad was like, "You'll never date my daughter."
Shut up.
He was cool as a disciple. He was not cool as a son.
He's like, no.
He said, "I know your testimony. I know your past." So he was no.
So he discipled you?
He spiritual father, disciple, mentored. Everything I know about ministry and leadership came from him.
Dang, so legit that 3 years of 18 to 21, I'm guessing lots of stuff happened. Like you grew up a lot.
Yeah, of course. Pastoring when you're I was a college student. I was 18. My youth students were like 1 year younger than me. And I was I transferred to Biola my sophomore year, so I was going to Biola University.
Oh, I didn't know you went to Biola.
I went to
Okay,
Biola.
So that's how you found yourself in OC.
Exactly. So
okay.
I was in Champaign-Urbana. I went to Trinity, which is a Bible school in Deerfield, Illinois, my freshman year. But I got hired the summer going into my sophomore year as a youth pastor here.
Okay.
So I transferred and moved to California because of the ministry position.
Amazing. And so these kids are asking you, like, what do we do? And you're like, I don't know.
Exactly.
Like,
Bro, true story. The youth group was like, at that time, anywhere from 8 to 12 kids, depending on if one family didn't come. I took them to a revival night, right? Because, those youth groups have like praise nights, revival nights.
You drive like the white van?
Yeah, 12-passenger van. I drove these kids to like a local church's praise night, like a mega church. I vividly remember the pastor said, "Let's open up to the book of Nehemiah." Right? And my youth kids are sitting next to me, and I couldn't find it. I just been saved like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
I can't find it. I'm like nervous. My youth student, Ellis, she says, "You don't know where the book of Nehemiah is."
No way.
And she chuckles. She takes the Bible from me, opens it, and gives it back to me.
She definitely did like a wanna.
She was sure, like, I remember the imposter syndrome, the like,
man,
I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I even a youth pastor? God, like, this is a mistake. Stuff like that happened all the time, bro.
I mean, what a humbling, amazing way to start.
Yeah, I guess.
like, no, I mean, just think about like that rocket ship of experience and
bro.
maturity. Like, lots of us have to grow, but sometimes I would assume like you find yourself in an accelerated season of growth.
Absolutely.
Like you put yourself in a situation where you had to grow, or else
Absolutely.
you're gonna get fired.
Just swim or drown.
Yeah.
That was definitely my experience.
Okay, so today we'll talk more about like singleness, like your story. So did you guys get engaged at 21, or you guys started dating at 21?
We got engaged. We got married 24, turning 25.
Okay.
So we were 24. It was April. I turned 25 in that June.
So when people are criticizing the pastors who got married at youth camp at 19, you can kind of say, yeah, like I agree.
No, we dated like 3.5 years, engaged a year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were together for some time before we got married.
So, but okay, and this is just actually a side question, not even on the notes. I notice that a lot of times singles prefer to hear from singles who know what the wait is like.
Of course.
You still think, though, obviously there's a lot of credit and experience from someone who's married, even though they might have been married, 10, 20 years and dating and engaged at 21, right? Like your fellow ministers and pastors, there's still tons of value from listening to them talking about singleness and dating.
Well, I think different individuals have different angles and maybe different perspectives to add value, right? For example, I wasn't single for an extended period of time, like someone maybe in their 30s or 40s right now. So maybe I may not be able to relate on that level, right? But on another level, there were certain things that I think I did do prior to or I regret that I wish I did more of before I got married or before I started seeing my wife. So I really feel like it's all about eating the meat and throwing out the bones, right? I might not on some empathetic level or someone listening may be able to feel understood in certain areas of the struggles.
Yes.
But there may be other areas where I didn't think about this way. I could learn from this angle.
Yes.
I didn't even consider that, right? So
right. So like the lack of experience of that long 20-year waiting doesn't necessarily disqualify someone from teaching, which I think most everybody has that.
Yeah.
And, would you just call it like humility to be able to learn from someone who maybe they don't look like you, they don't have the same experience as you, but they have wisdom and teaching.
Of course.
So out of humility, you just say.
And I also feel like, at least when I was single, I learned a lot, not just from single people, but I learned from observing healthy married people.
Yes.
Because it gives me an image or a picture of what I hope I can be in the future, right?
Yeah.
So even though I might not be able to relate to them in this moment because they're not single, but they've been an inspiration for me. Like, wow, their marriage is so healthy. He or she is healthy. Like, what have they done in their personal lives and their relational lives? And it gives me almost like a pathway of, wow, if I could implement some of those things, maybe I might be able to one day have a healthy marriage and relationship.
Totally. So that's not quite discipleship, right? As you would define it, or our boy Grant would define it, right? That's not like life on life, but you would find yourself. So you were single till 25, roughly. So would you say that was one of the most important things for you, is not just being around other single guys, but actually being around married men, healthy relationship? Because you didn't really have healthy Christian kingdom marriage until maybe you were discipled by Andrea's dad and maybe other couples. Like, what is the importance of being around and observing healthy, godly marriage?
Well, I think everyone needs like a picture or a vision or an image to aspire to, right? So when you're around healthy couples, it gives you like an inspiration and a hope that one day maybe I could be healthy enough, or maybe one day I could be godly enough and I could be sacrificial enough to love the way this man does, right? I mean, just to be frank, my dad and my mom are like, they're like in love, dude. Like, they were to me the biggest inspiration. Like, my dad loves my mom like crazy, and he will do anything for her, and he's modeled that for me. For me, a lot of it even just came from books. I just read books on like the disciplines of a godly man. I read Tim Keller's book on the meaning of marriage. I read Gary Chapman. I was reading those things up on my own too, right? So for me, it's just, I think exposure is key. So just being around godly people, being around, going to places where you learn from experts. Those are all just wins. You know?
So, but like from age 20 to 25, were you always like that ready and wanting to invest in yourself and even just read books like that? Like,
Bro,
what even drove?
With you, dude. I'll be frank with you. I don't know if this is gonna bless the audience or discourage the audience. I really, again, different season in life. I was just focused on serving God, dude. Backstory. From the time I was in junior high until I got saved, I was in like so many relationships. Like I was in relationship after relationship after relationship after relationship. Mind you, I wasn't a Christian. I've had, full disclosure, I've had 2 girlfriends at the same time. Like I'm a horrible man. Like I'm just not a good person.
It was just player life.
Yeah, it was just player life, right? Because I had no other framework. I just
You're just doing as you did.
Yeah, grew up on the streets, did my own thing. Know my story. I just did my whatever. I get saved. And when I get saved, my sole kind of desire was to live a life that's honoring God. Not perfectly, obviously. I'm still a sinner. I made mistakes. So my main priority was just trying to grow in godliness, learn the word of God, fulfill my purpose and my calling and my career and vocation as a leader, as a pastor, as a servant. I was a student. So I was studying hard. On the weekends, I was pastoring. So for me, I was just really going hard after God. I heard someone once say, I think this is kind of, cliche, but they said the way you find a partner as a believer is you run as fast as you can towards God. And then you look to your right and your left and you see who's also running as fast as you are. And that should be more the perspective versus just always looking to find someone who can be there, for me, that was more me. I was just running after God. I was just running after God, doing what I can to be devoted to him. And I looked at my right and I was on a mission trip with my then just friend. And we were co-leading this mission trip as college students. And I just looked and I was like, oh my gosh, like I never saw a girl who loved God so much. I've never seen a girl who aspires to serve the Lord like this. And that was it for me. And so I just went after her. And so for me, I think when you have biblical convictions and values to pursue the Lord, and those are your highest priorities, and you meet someone else that embodies those same values, that was when the attraction happened to me.
Totally.
And I was friends with my wife for 2 years before I ever liked her. So I met her when I was 16 on the mission field right after I got saved. She didn't think nothing of me. I didn't think nothing of her. Mm-hmm. She even said she thought I was a player because I was talking to all her friends.
You kind of were.
Yeah. But I was saved by then. So I was trying to get that part off. But so again, like we weren't even attracted to each other. There was nothing about her. And then people who want to date the pastor's daughter, right?
Right.
But then we were serving God and I just saw I realized my values and her values aligned with each other. I remember, I pastor a lot of college students and young adults, and they used to say like, hey, P. Will, like, should I marry someone that has the same vision as me as life? And for me, at first, I thought maybe, but more so is like, do you guys have the same values?
Yeah.
Because visions change. Like, people's dreams change. People's aspirations change. But when you could identify in your deepest values, that's when the bond happens. So for me and Andrea, it was like, we had this unspoken value, which is love God, want to serve God, we want to do missions, and obviously all the other stuff that come with it.
Right, and we'll figure out the rest. But everything is born from that.
Yes.
But what I do love is, so we teach on the 4 buckets of attraction. Physical is obviously the first one, and we just say it's massively initial.
Yeah.
And whether you have it initially or not actually is not important because, we can talk about physical attraction too, but there's emotional, intellectual, and then the most important one, which is spiritual attraction, which is, it sounds like you would say is the number one thing that you were probably attracted to in that moment as you kind of looked over.
Well, I think whatever you value the most would be the higher priority of attraction.
Right.
And there's nothing, not to throw shade, there's nothing wrong with being physically attracted. I mean, Song of Solomon is attraction, the Book of Ruth, attraction. The Bible says Rachel was fine, that's attraction. So there's nothing wrong with that. So different people have different preferences. But I think the higher your attraction, it probably is attached to a value that's the greatest that's in your heart, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And we talk about values that last. Like physical attraction is kind of the funniest one because that one is guaranteed to
100%.
not really get better with age.
Mm-mm.
And if we're talking about eternal friendship and relationship, right, the one that is probably the most important with an eternal timeline would be the eternal attribute of spiritual, right, attractiveness or their intimacy with God. Do you feel like your emotional, intellectual, physical attraction kind of maybe grew as you spiritually were just like really, really aligned, ignited, and like you look over and see a girl who's running spiritually at the same pace as you?
Yeah, obviously those things grew over time. This is just my story, right? My wife, then friend that I was pursuing, at what I'm married now, but for the 2.5, 3 years I pursued her, it was like torture for me. Because I would tell her I like you, and she would just like smile at me. And she'd be like, ha ha. And then she used to always say, I just wish we were older. I don't know if some of you are college students and you feel like you can't date right now because you're too young, but my wife was like that. I'm ready to get married. I'm
right.
like, let's go, right?
Yeah.
And she was like, look, I don't want to marry a pastor. Number 2, we're too young. So at a certain point, I just thought she was like asexual. Because she showed no physical, like she didn't even throw me a bone.
Yeah.
Like I was like trying to like, and she wouldn't even hang out with me one-on-one ever. We hung out one time in the way beginning once. And that was enough for me to feel like...
that was enough for her to call you a friend for 3 years.
Yeah, bro. So I remember at one point, I felt like, man, this girl doesn't show me any romantic, physical things that I need. And I remember telling myself over and over and over, this is over. Forget her. I don't want to be with her. I remember one time I went to go visit her in San Diego because she was in town. And that was a Saturday night. And usually as a youth pastor, Saturday when I was sermon prepping, I said, you know what? I'm just going to go. I'm going to surprise her. We've been like talking for like 2 years, even though it was a one-way thing. But I still felt like I was winning her over. So I surprised her and show up in front of her door in San Diego without even telling her, thinking she would at least go out to get coffee.
Yeah, power play.
She literally just said, I'm not going to go out. And her cousins were at her house, 2 female cousins, 2 girls. And they were like laughing at me. I felt so embarrassed, dog. And I remember she literally just said, like, I don't know what you're doing here. We can't hang out. So I get back in the car. Come on, brothers. I just drive home. And I remember I was so mad. And I even started praying prayers like, God, even if she is the one, I don't want to be with her.
Bro, that is a tough look.
Yes, I remember like...
Did you say thank you for rejecting me?
No, I didn't say thank you for that. I said I hate you for rejecting me. But my point is, I just remember for me... Everyone's story is different, dude. Like,
right.
And we didn't talk for like 3 months because I was so butthurt.
Yeah.
But anytime I don't want to say I prayed, but I just loved her, dude. I don't know what else to say. Like, people ask me like, yo, P-Will, I heard your story. I'm just going to keep going after this girl. I'm like, yo, that's different. There's a difference between like stalking someone, like chill out. Right? But for me, it was just like, I just really wanted to be with her. I never heard an audible voice of God. I just was like, there was something that started spiritually. And as we were talking, there was also like this emotional connection.
Yeah.
And then obviously I found her physically attractive and I just kept at it.
I mean, dude, this is great. And I love that you like to clarify, not just for, the person who might hear this and be like, all right, like if it worked for him, it can work for me. I just need to be patient and faithful. And
I would say, though, I do think guys give up more now than they used to in the past.
How so?
I just feel like just because of a girl rejected you once or twice, it doesn't mean you should just let it go. I think if you really
let go of the idea of pursuing her.
Yeah, because sometimes now it's like there's so many options to date. You could just meet another date. But for me, it's like if you really find someone attractive and you really feel like this is a good person,
right?
I think the price of going for it is the potential to be rejected. And I think feeling that rejection and pushing through that sometimes is actually the thing that wins that person over.
Totally. So look, we say this, like there's no substitute for a man choosing. Like you rarely ever hear the story of the girl liking the guy, getting rejected, and just kind of hanging around, being, just very solid.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I wasn't really attracted to her at first, but I just saw her character and she just was still there and consistent and really like you just don't. I'm not saying it's impossible.
It's very uncommon.
Right. But what we see time and time again is a man chooses. right? And then obviously the female can reciprocate right away. Like we hear stories all the time. The girl saw him, he saw her. Oh, so attractive. Oh, you're a Christian too. And then, you know, that wasn't our story, Kate and I either.
Yeah, I know.
But one thing that we totally just, you know, at this point, I think are just not tired of, but like it does get fatiguing is you hear great stories and that means that has to be your story as well. Right. Stories are so, they are so unique when it comes to love and romance
100%.
and marriage. 100%. There's really not one that is just like another.
100%.
So what worked for you and was great, and I think there is truth in that consistency. And what we say is this: we actually go to Song of Solomon as well. Do not stir up love
until so desires. Yeah.
Right, and that can be, you know, like physically, like, you know, interpreted like turn on. I also think it has like spiritual merit. Like there is an idea of like, I do think that God can ignite your heart for maybe one girl more so than any other as a man. I get really careful saying that though, because we're so quick to jump and with our flesh and our own thinking and logic of, oh, this is the one, right? This is the one.
For sure.
Right. So then we kind of balance that out with, and what we say is there's no such thing as the one.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The only one that exists is the one that you choose.
Exactly.
Right. So God knows who you're going to marry, but he didn't make Andrea for the sole purpose of being your wife,
100%.
right? Like, and there's no such thing as soulmates.
Yeah, I don't believe in that either.
I know. I saw you break it down.
Yeah, did
it's
I?
Plato.
Was it like years ago? I don't remember.
It was last year or 2 years ago.
Oh, was it?
Right before you had Kate come speak.
I don't remember, dog.
Yeah, it's from Greek mythology. And Zeus splitting up and Plato saying,
soulmates.
Or twin flames. Have you heard about twin flames?
Yeah, I heard about twin flames. I watched
that one's crazy,
dog.
dude.
The documentary is
so crazy. I don't know why all these cults just have to have a guy who's like Jesus. It's definitely like demonic in that sense. Like, ironically, half these cults always have a guy who's like a Jesus figure.
For sure.
But yeah.
Well, I think one angle that, because obviously I'm not single, so my angle is a little different. I could come at it as a married person. One thing that I've been thinking about, I heard this, I do a lot of premarital counseling. I forget where I heard this quote, but the quote goes, every relationship will only be as healthy as the least healthy person.
Okay.
Right?
Every relationship
will only be as healthy as the least healthy person.
Oh, okay. That's like the baseline.
Yeah. So instead of you thinking that the relationship dynamics, whoever's the healthiest, it will actually come down.
Totally.
Right? Because brokenness and trauma and pain and sin actually brings the other person down to what you're experiencing.
Yes.
So one thing that I wish I've done more of, and I'm still working on, is my own personal journey of healing. I remember when I was single, I was talking to a mentor of mine, married guy, and I said, hey, what's the difference between when you're single and you're married? Something like that. I don't remember an exact question, but I remember his answer. He said, when you're single and you sin by yourself. But when you're married, everything doubles. So he said, when you have anger issues, when you're single, you could just close the door, punch a hole in the wall, deal it with yourself.
Totally.
If you're depressed, you could just sleep in and do your own thing. But once you're married, your anger doubles.
Yes.
Your depression doubles.
Yep.
Your anxiety now affects your wife or your husband. So for me, I always think if I could go back in time, I would have spent more time getting healing, integrating a holistic discipleship and formation so that I could have given a better version to my wife and to my children.
Right.
And all the issues that we have when you're alone, you just deal with it by yourself, you know? So I like to encourage people, like, the greatest gift that you can offer your future partner is the healthiest version of yourself. And going on that journey and going on that path now is going to be one of the number one ingredients to a flourishing marriage in the future.
But so, Will, here's the thing, though, and I get goosebumps thinking about this. Imagine we had 22-year-old Will listening to this, 25-year-old JJ. They say that's great, and then they go about their day. Like, what's it got to take for, I think, getting a single man to invest in their mental, spiritual health, specifically through therapy and through discipleship, like life on life and inner healing, is probably the biggest Achilles heel, kryptonite for single Christian men. And I'm speaking from my own personal experience, and I'm speaking from the experience of being in Christian community with other single Christian guys. Why do you think that is? and like how have you gotten through to the single Christian men, like even within your own church?
So you're saying, why do I think single Christian men have a hard time receiving that message of
Right. And like actually, you know, because I would call it a force function.
Mm-hmm,
I would say marriage is a great force function to, whether you like it or not, things are going to surface, like it's that mirror. And two, you're going to have someone in a great way all over you to go seek out healing. And sometimes it's not always out of your own. It should be your own volition. And at the healthiest it is, you know, it can create resentment, right? If you're changing and going to therapy because your wife is let's just call it as your wife is nagging you or bothering you or just consistently bringing it up.
I don't think it's necessarily that the Christian man doesn't want healing. I don't also even think it's that they don't want integration. I think one is some ignorance to it. I don't think they may even realize there is spaces and access to develop that, right? Because most Christian people only hear like memorize this Bible verse or do the Christian thing. And maybe more than that, they just need more access to understand there's a fuller theology. So for me, I've learned that the guys want it. They're hungry for it. They're thirsting for it. And what they're looking for is a pastor or a ministry like Heart of Dating that actually has the resources, that has the practical tips with the theological foundation, with avenues to give them resources and platforms to get the healing that they need. So I actually think they want it. I actually think they need it. And I actually think it's when they get in exposure to sermon series or exposure to ministries. I mean, when you and Kate came to our church, there are people in my church that were freaking out. I had no idea they knew who you guys were. And my stock went up, bro. They were like, you're friends with them? They were like, oh my gosh, is that Kate and JJ Heart of Dating? Yeah, because I think they want it. So I think as a pastor, what I did was give them exposure.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're going to take a month to talk about singleness. We're going to take a month to talk about trauma. We're going to take a month to talk about relationships and coping mechanisms and mental health and how the Bible is a holistic Bible, the book of Psalms and Proverbs, all mental health. So I think more than anything, what worked for me was first, I had to give them exposure. And then I had to model it as a pastor. My wife and I had to model vulnerability, relational struggles. And then I have to pastor them through conflict. So oftentimes your conflict with your roommates and your conflict with your friends is preparation for your conflict with your spouse.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to do conflict resolution or with your roommates, your friends, your coworkers, your boss, that might be the reason why you haven't found someone, a significant other to do that with, because everything is preparation and training for what's to come. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. We say marriage is just friendship on fire. But if you're not doing true friendship well in singleness, you're not going to magically do it well
100%.
in marriage.
100%.
But part of that is being able to be vulnerable, to be honest with one another, to be able to receive feedback, to have the space where you can say, hey, Will, I love you. One thing we say is it's easy to be honest about something. It's hard to be honest with each other, right? Like it's very easy for me to complain to you about something somebody did to me. It's very hard for me to look you in the eyes and say, hey, Will, I love you. And because I love you, there's something I would love to talk to you about, you know, your character or what I've seen or the word, the language,
100%.
how you treated this girl.
100%.
Right. So, and then you talk a lot about kind of showing, like, don't just talk about it, be about it. So you feel like that comes through doing like life Monday through Saturday with your congregation, with your community, and showing them like, I love that idea of, you know, we call it like finding like a godly king and queen couple, like a couple that you really admire. Cause I can remember being around that, godly king and queen and seeing them do conflict for the first time and seeing him, he raised his voice, the guy I'm thinking of, he raised his voice like slightly aggressively and they duked it out and he came back 5 minutes later in front of everyone, not to show off, but literally, hey babe, I raised my voice and got aggressive with you. I'm so sorry.
100%. Bro, my wife and I work together.
Right.
We have a staff meeting together.
Yeah.
Like we lead these meetings and there's moments, and you will know when you work with your partner, like you fight. You get frustrated. And sometimes like our staff, we're having this moment where you could just tell it was kind of tense.
Yes.
And like we don't even realize, or my wife realizes, I don't even realize that it's getting like that. And I have to pause, and our staff like kind of like, what just happened? Like we just went to a staff meeting to like watching your guys' private conversation, and we have to be like, hey guys, we're so sorry. We're still figuring out how a husband and wife works together.
Yeah.
If that made you guys feel uncomfortable, like let us know. I mean, it's life on life together, dude. And my wife and I, I'm all about leading from weakness, leading in vulnerability, leading with transparency, leading with authenticity. I was just talking about this recently, right? I think as leaders or as just people, the temptation is to be special, right? But the invitation is to be normal, is to be weak. And when we're vulnerable and when we're weak, that people can connect to us, that people can relate to us, right? So for me, it's all about just being honest, dude.
I saw that clip, by the way.
Yeah.
Just be normal.
Just be normal, dude.
Yeah. Just be normal.
Like even like when I see like these wedding, like marriage gurus, and they look perfect, and all they talk about is like our marriage is this, and I'm just like, dude, they're lying.
Right.
Like just turn it off.
Yeah.
Like I will listen to a couple that starts off with, hey, we got into a fight like yesterday. I'm okay. Yeah, I could respect that.
Right. About the dumbest thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
no, but ours are on Zoom, and we have those moments. And I would tell you, if we pulled up our employees from Heart of Dating right now on this podcast and asked them what they probably love most about working at Heart of Dating, they would probably say one of their favorite things is seeing Kate and I work through disagreements and conflicts or different ideas in front of them in a healthy way.
100%.
And we do the same thing when that Zoom camera is off, right? As much as possible. And I think it's impossible to do without safe space.
100%.
I would say I think men have to be shown what it looks like to be emotionally healthy. And they have to experience safe space.
Absolutely.
And and I love how you corrected that assumption of like, why are men not doing it? They want it. And the second a single man experiences safe space 100%. And vulnerability,
100%.
he's gonna want it.
Yeah.
He's gonna want it.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you had that as a single man with your brothers in the church, or was that something that you kind of had to work, grow, challenge yourself into?
No, I had that, dude. I was fortunate enough that I just spontaneously, with 4 other guy friends, we were all at Biola and Talbot. We met every week for 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah, we met every week, even after I got married for a couple more years, until I ended up moving overseas for a period of my life with my wife. We met every week for about 2 hours for 7 years. And we started every week by going around and sharing, confessing sins, confessing any problems that guys typically struggle with, share prayer requests. And we would share for about an hour, and then we would pray for each other for about almost like 30 or 45 minutes. And I did that every single week for 7 years. And those guys were my groomsmen, and I still talk to them all the time.
Would you be the man you are today without that?
Oh, no way.
Would
dude.
you say that would probably be the number one?
Oh my gosh, that was my safe space. That was when I wasn't a pastor.
Yeah.
That was when I wasn't a leader. That was when I wasn't the societal pressure of what it means to be a godly man.
Right.
I was Will, who was insecure, who was still struggling, who was still questioning, who was still doubting, who was preaching on the weekends, but still doubting my own success and my own faith. So in that space, I would say, hey guys, I'm angry about this, or hey guys, I watched this, or hey guys, I'm struggling with this. And we would pray for each other. 7 years, dude, every week.
Okay, so here's the last question. Have you read Emotionally Healthy Spirituality?
Of course, I've read all those books.
So good.
Yeah.
All of them.
All of them, baby. Literally, I'm not joking though.
I mean, I believe it.
Yeah.
The iceberg. The top 20%, which is kind of what we get in that, weekly group.
Yeah.
Where I wouldn't even call them friends because you've seen them because you have to see them and you guys don't see each other outside of community group, right? How long did it take for you guys to kind of break through that 20% surface level and develop that?
It takes at least a year or two, man, for you to just feel like you can actually, like, I feel like the level of vulnerability is dependent on how safe you feel, right? So you could you could try to be vulnerable, but until you actually feel like, hey, I'm not going to be thrown away.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be judged. I'm not going to be whatever, right?
Yeah.
Then once and that takes time.
Sometimes it does, yeah.
Yeah, and another thing is, of those 4 guys, 2 of them were my roommates for like 4 years.
Yeah.
So we did it all together.
Everything
together. And I mean, I guess I'm, in one regard, someone may be listening to this and say, oh, you're fortunate enough to have done that.
Right.
But I mean, fortunate enough to have experienced that. But on the other side, we created that. Like,
yeah.
I went out the way and said, hey, boys, I've been thinking, I need accountability.
Right.
Would you guys be down to meet every week?
Because relationships and friendships,
yeah,
think about this, by nature, by flesh, drift.
Yeah, 100%.
That's why having that takes one word: intentionality.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is still my lifeline. We're in a chat. I'm still that chat is still where I go to, where I'm like, yo, my wife and I going through this, or hey man, church going through this, and we got you, dog.
So would you say, like, last piece of advice for any single guy listening would be find safe space with other men?
100,000%.
Yeah.
I think without that, it would be hard to do the deep inner work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amen. Well, Will, thank you so much, bro.
Yeah, man.
I don't know if we asked a single question that was on the notes, but hope you guys, I mean, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And
on,
before I let you go, I just want to say I actually respect and admire you so much.
Thanks,
from the second I've met you, you've only led with that authentic, I wouldn't say normal, it's actually presentation of my weak self, and which magnifies Christ in your life all the more. And you had a clip the other day and you were just like, man, before I get up and speak, if I don't lead with love, I don't want to lead. And so I just want to like say, I totally respect and affirm and see Christ's love through you. And that's probably the greatest compliment I could ever give another guy. So, yeah.
Thanks, bro.
I love you, bro.
Love you too.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me on, dude.
Amen. Let's go.